So this is a new module. The title of this module is Maxims and Principles of Annotation. So here in this module, we will discuss in some details the principles and maxims of annotations that are normally followed at the time of annotating a text in a corpus database. So in this module, we will broadly describe or discuss three important issues: the maxims of annotations, which has been proposed by Jeffrey Leach in 1991, and the basic principles of annotations, which we propose here, also discussed in some of our earlier publications, and the present state of annotations of corpora in different parts, in different languages, also including in Indian languages. So what annotation means is that annotations is a process by which we add additional information to the texts collected in corpus. Why this annotation is required? There is an important question. How this annotation has to be made? Another important question. What kind of additional information we can get there? There is another information. And how that additional annotation is going to help the machine and man in retrieving and utilization of data, that is another question. So there are several issues involved into it. We will try to address most of these issues here, although in brief. So what happens in a text, in a piece of text, when we are going to trying to annotate? We are actually trying to add up some additional information to the text with an expectation is that this additional layer of information, additional load of information, which has been tagged to the corpus, will help both man and machine to comprehend, to understand the text in a far better way, and utilize the resources in a more fruitful manner by machine and man. So, in a text, we can have two types of information loaded onto it. One is called intra-linguistic information. Another is called extra-linguistic information. Intra-linguistic information actually relates to the text itself, which has been captured in the corpus. And perhaps, without referring to other parts, without referring to any other areas, we can look at the texts with certain knowledge base of linguistics, and perhaps retrieve those knowledge base or information which has been embedded into the text. So this is called intra-linguistic annotation. The other one is extra-linguistic annotation, that has to come from outside, where we do that these information are not actually available inside the texts. Rather, we need to add them from outside so that the text becomes more comprehensible. We can do additional information. Since we are keeping in mind the text which we have already developed in the form of corpus, is not only meant for machine learning or for use of machine use, but also in other domains which can be used. So it is always rational that we should have additional load of information tagged with the machine, with the corpus, so that can be used more sensibly, more fruitfully. So what happens while doing the annotation? We give two types of information. One is called representational information and another is called interpretative information. In cases of representational information, the actual form of the text that contains characters, words, terms, phrases, sentences, spelling variations, punctuations, and other visual information, we add information to that. This actually comes the representational information. Interpretative information, on the other hand, is something which is added from outside. We add it to interpret the things, to add the basic text database, usually to expert linguists presumed to have the insight or the knowledge of the language, and that information is actually added into it. So representational information actually serves the purpose to help us to understand what those linguistic resources, linguistic elements, linguistic items in the corpus represent for. Interpretative information is basically is an annotation which helps us to interpret the text in a far better way. So, according to Leach, he says that when we are doing annotation, three important things has to be kept in mind. Number 1, consistency. Number 2, accuracy. And number 3 is speed. What is consistency means? That means that the entire text which is being annotated should be consistently annotated. It is not that one part of the text is annotated, the other part of text is left aside. Then third part of it is annotated. If you do annotation following a particular set of annotations, a set of tags, then do the whole part of annotation following the same way all through the text. Either it can be done initially manually, or can be done by machine. But that should be very consistency. The entire process should be carried out in a consistent manner, so that there is a balance or a well representation of the information in a consistent manner inside the text. Second important part is accuracy. Accuracy means the way we are annotating text, the way we are adding additional information, tagging additional information to the text should be more or less accurate. It's not that at one point of time I find a particular word to be a noun, and the same noun in the same frame is being tagged as another person of speech or adjective or a false one or a verb. That is not true. That is not good. So you need to identify that, okay, there should be a certain level of accuracy at the time of tagging. And third part is speed. Speed actually refers to that if it is a huge load of data and it has to be annotated manually, then it will take huge time, lot of time, and many days and years will be spent for annotating the text. So it is always better that you do the annotation by machine, so that it can be done quite consistently with certain level of accuracy and speed. But even then, after the text is annotated, that becomes open for verification and validation by human experts. So what Leach has proposed, that in cases of annotation, 3 important things has to be maintained: that there should be consistency in annotation, and level of accuracy should be preserved there. Third part, it should be done quite fast, so that large amount of text are annotated for subsequent uses. So while anyone wants to annotate a particular text, we need to keep in mind 2 important things. What kind of linguistic information should be annotated in the corpus, and how it should be done. As we have taken for already understood that when a corpus is ready at hand, normally it is in a written form. So there are various linguistic items in the whole corpus. Each level of items, each type of item requires a separate set of annotations. So when we are interested to tag, annotate the characters or the letters or the orthographic symbols in the text, we need a different set of annotations, different tag sets. But whenever we want to do annotation at the word level, we need another new set of annotations, another set of tags that to be annotated. If you want to identify the phrases, the proper names, the multi-word units, or larger constructions, larger units into the text, then we need to have different types of annotation text. What I propose here, that what we discuss here is that at the time of annotation, one has to be very clear about what kind of linguistic information one is going to add up there in the text, so that annotation set can be designed accordingly and implemented on it. Second important part is how that should be annotated. There are 2 other ways, 2 alternative ways. It's a manual annotation is one kind of thing that can be done, and there is automatic or non-supervised annotation. In cases of manual annotation, what happens? An expert or a good linguist who is very well trained in the task of annotation is given a text and a set of annotation tags or tag sets. So what he does, he reads the texts or the characters, marks them properly with a specific set of annotations already given to them. in a uniform manner, in a very consistent manner, and thus the entire corpus is formed. But this is, since it is done manually, it takes huge amount of time, and there is a chance that there is a possibility of making mistakes, because many often it may happen that the annotator is get confused to identify the actual linguistic identity or actual linguistic function or actual linguistic role of the elements which are used in the text. So manual annotation can be done. Initially, in fact, it was done for the part of machine training and machine learning, but normally we don't try to encourage them. So it is basically, annotation should be done mostly automatically in a consistent manner based on linguistic rules and properties and elements. So alternative process is that annotation can be done automatically or semi-automatically or a semi-supervised manner, in a rule-based manner, or taking a lot of statistical information from corpus, developing a system where words, other strings, other members, or multi-word units can be annotated. In the broad level, we can have annotation at parts of speech level, at morphology level, at a grammar level, at syntax level, at anaphora level, semantics level, discourse level, pragmatics, and sociolinguistics. Also, we have got some other new types of annotations in recent times, which we are going to discuss in subsequent modules here, what kind of different models of annotations can be applied on a corpus. But before that, I would like to discuss the maxims which has been proposed by Jeffrey Leach in 1993. In an article, he categorically identified 7 maxims to be followed unanimously while trying to annotate all those texts. So those annotations or maxims need to be discussed here in a little bit, that identify what kind of strategies or method we should follow at the time of annotation. He argues that it should always be easy to dispense with annotation and revert to the raw corpus. The raw corpus would be recoverable. So this is the first maxim what Leach proposes, that whatever the annotations is carried out on a text, fine, but at the same time it has to be kept into mind that there should be a system or policy or method through which one can go back to his raw text of the corpus. The annotation should correspondingly be extractable from the raw corpus to be stored independently or stored in interlinear format. So in the reverse way also, that it is not the text also, the annotation guidelines, annotation text, annotations also should be recoverable from the text. The scheme of analysis presupposed by the annotators, the annotation scheme, should be based on principles and guidelines accessible to the end user. So the entire annotation scheme should be based on certain principles and guidelines. So it should be made clear beforehand about how and by whom all the annotations are being made. There can be no claim that the annotation scheme represents the final one, God's truth, not like that. Rather, the annotated corpus is made available to research community on a caveat emptor principles. It is offered as a good model alternative convenience for the purpose of users. So avoid misapplications of the annotation schemes so that a number of errors is drastically reduced. Finally, no annotations can claim the authenticity or as the standard or authority of the standard. It should be de facto interchange of standards. Rather, it's basically a kind of conventions or methodology which has been followed that should be followed, and these annotations can be revised. So these are the 7 maxims which was proposed by Leach in 1993, and based on the maxims and keeping all the annotations, techniques, methodologies, and strategies adopted for annotating corpus of various types, we have come up with 12 different principles of annotations, and we are going to describe those principles with keeping in mind the Indian languages. So it is mostly customized to a certain extent to address the problems and issues of Indian languages. So these 12 principles can be taken as ground truth while annotating texts in Indian languages. So these 12 principles which we propose here are actually outcome of our research on corpus texts of different types across last 2 decades. So it is still open for verifications, for modifications and alterations. So if you think that in future some other important issues or principles can be formulated to substantiate the process of corpus annotations, you are always welcome. But at present, we have got 12 basic principles of text annotation or corpus annotations. Here we come. Principle number 1, generic tag sets for all Indian languages. We propose that since India has 5 language groups, initially it was 4, now it is called 5, sometimes some others. Our argument is we should have a generic tag set, generic and more general kind of tag set, which can be applied for all Indian languages. It is not necessary that all the properties, all the property elements identified in the tag set should be equally applicable for all Indian languages. No, not that. It may happen some of the elements are missing in some languages. It may happen. In that case, that particular element, that particular tag set can be defunct, can be non-functional that particular language. But what we say that we should have a well-defined generic tag set for all Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Sino-Tibetan, Astro-Asiatic and other language groups which has been formed. That tag set can be applied on that. So first one, we have argued that there should be a generic tag set for all Indian languages. Principle 2, uniform tag set to be designed for all text types. We are now talking about the tag set in uniform for all text types. So it is not that we should have a separate tag set for scientific texts, another tag sets for non-scientific text, another tag set for media text, another tag set for poetic text, another tag set for spoken interaction, spoken speech text. No, that kind of inconsistency should not be entertained. So we should have a uniform tag sets. If we think that there is fixed tag sets for all kinds of annotations, then that should be applied for everywhere, all kinds of tag sets. So there should be uniform tag sets. Also, it should keep in mind that okay, tag sets for a particular language is applicable for not applicable for the other language. That should not be allowed. So tag sets should be mostly consistent or uniform for all the language text types. Third important principle is spatiotemporal dimensions should be present in the tag set. This is an important issue. This implies that since our corpus is going to be not only a general corpus but it's a multidimensional and diachronic corpus, should also keep in mind that while we are developing a tag set, that tag set must account for the text which is present now, which is available now. But at the same time, that tag set should also be useful for those texts produced or written, say, 500 years ago. That means all the spatiotemporal properties of the diachronic and synchronic expansions properties should be taken into consideration. So it is not that the text which is produced in, which is meant for the text produced in West Bengal or Bangla, West Bengal is good or useful. That text set can also be useful for the text produced in Bangladesh or text produced in Bihar, Jharkhand and other neighboring states or across the globe. So the tag set must take into account all the text produced in all spatiotemporal dimensions. Principle 4 says that there should be a layered approach should be applied for annotations. If we take, for example, layered approach means that several layers in the texts. So we have identified 10 different layers where annotations can be done. So we can arrange them in that way. That first layer is called orthographical layer or orthographic annotations, where characters and other symbols should be tagged. Second layer is phonodic layer, where tone, accent, intonation, junctures and others should be tagged. Third layer is morphological layer, where morphological forms and information should be tagged. Fourth layer is parts of speech layer. Fifth layer is word group. Sixth, chunking. Seventh, parsing. Eighth is semantic level. Ninth is anaphoric. 10th, discoursal. 11th, sociolinguistic. And 12th, etymological. So we have identified 12 different layers where different set of annotation tag sets has to be defined and can be applied on it. So here we say that an annotations is not like that on the same text all the 12 layers has to be applied. And it do that, then it will be so cumbersome that it won't be able to use for that purpose. So it is better that we can have the same text in 12 different versions while 12 different layers of annotations are tagged. So we propose a layered approach. Then principle 5, hierarchical formation of text is desired. So we can find out that there should be a hierarchical. Suppose hierarchical text set means to go to the finer possible actual identity of the item in the text, we should have several layers. Suppose I am giving an example. If you look at the say parts of speech of a word noun, so one layer is that the word can be identified as a noun. Second layer can be proper noun or a common noun or a collective noun or an abstract noun or verbal noun. A third layer, even in cases of proper noun, we can classify that place name, person name, item name, object name or something like that. So what happens, within each level we can have a unique ID for that, for the unique code or for unique tag, so that in the text we can identify or mark them accordingly. So our argument is that we should have a very hierarchical formation of tag set so that we can go and pinpoint exact appropriate information embedded into the text, embedded the item into the text and tag it accordingly. Principle 6, metadata format should be used for tag set. So this is an important part of tag sets, that various types of metadata as HTML, SGML, XML, different types of metadata can be tagged or should be preserved in the tag sets. So we can have this metadata, as I have already mentioned several times before, that this metadata can be preserved in the form of a header file with elaborate information. And this header file can carry the information about the language type, head category, subcategory, text type, source text, title of the text, volume number, issue number and lot of other issues. Nearly 20 different domains of information can be tagged with that. So metadata format should be used for the tag set. Principle number 7, tag sets should be at par with the global standard. Here also we are trying to be to certain extent to make it, since the whole tagged corpus as well as the raw corpus is meant to be available globally all across the boundaries of borders. So we should keep in mind that already the tag sets defined by some other organizations like ELRA or CLAUSE or SEL or TI, all these communities have ISLE, that is ELRA, European Languages Resources Association. They have developed a uniform tag set. Then Text Encoding Initiative has another tag set, or CLAUSE, Constituent Likelihood Automatic Word Tagging System, or Association of Computational Linguistics, or International Standards for Language Engineering, or EAGLES. They have many good tag sets are developed, and we have noted that they have good similarities among those tag sets. So our proposal is that the tag sets which we are supposed to develop for Indian languages, which should be treated as BIS tag set, as Bureau of Indian Standards tag set, Indian standard, that should be at par with the tag sets already available for other languages of the world. so that there can be a cross verification, cross validation, cross reference, cross matching, and cross utilization of information, not only from Indian languages but from other languages also. So we propose that the tag sets that to be designed or annotated must comply with the global standards. Principles 8. Extensibility of tag set is required for specific languages. So as I have already mentioned, that it is not necessarily that all the Indian languages should have equal number of tags. It may be expanded, may be modified or changed to little. Broadly, although they are identical in form, in some cases there are least consistency in those cases. So here we should keep in mind that if we find that for a particular language or a variety, we need to expand or modify the existing tag set which has been developed for most of the Indian languages. We should definitely do that, because our basic task is to account for the unique properties as well as the common general properties of the language or a variety, rather than implementing the BIS tag set so rigorously that some of the important information or data is missed out from the target language. So it is rather the other way around. The existing BIS tag set may be slightly extended or modified or changed to accommodate, to account for the uniqueness observed in a particular language or a variety. Dispensability of tag set from a text is mandatory, as it has been already mentioned for the first maxim by Vidya-mitra. We also insisted that principle 9, that whatever annotation scheme we use, whatever annotation process we apply, whatever the layer we adopt, we must be careful that the additional information which is being tagged, which will be annotated with the text, should be removed and the original text can be recoverable at any point of time. So since these are two different parts, there are two different kinds of linguistic elements assembled in corpus, there should have a very clear provision for isolating or separating them whenever it is required. Number principle 10, standardization of tag set is a prerequisites. This is this annotation tag sets, which has been guidelines also, methodology also, should be standardized for all Indian languages, so that it can handle a wide range of applications of language technology and applied linguistics. So the tag sets or the annotation guidelines should be maximally standardized, so that it doesn't create much problem for the annotated data to be used in all other disciplines of linguistics and language technology and other parts. So we can at present we can visualize certain application domains of the tagged corpus or tagged annotated data, but at the same time it may happen that there are many new areas will come up where we have not yet visualized how this annotated text can be utilized. So we should keep in mind that those texts which are being annotated in such a way that there should be a standard, uniform standard, so that in future also it can be modified in an appropriate manner, or the text, the standard can be adopted for all kinds of application purposes. Principle number 11, that the tag sets should be maximally user-friendly. It means that tag sets are naturally done keeping in mind two applications. That tag sets at one point of time it is meant for machine learning, it is for understanding by the machine. So it may happen that certain tag sets which are used in a symbolic manner, that these are only understood by machine. But also it may happen that these annotated corpora are also going to be used by people. So in that case, it should be made in such a way that it becomes maximally user friendly, that people can also understand the things and analyze the text accordingly. Last principle of this is there should be no ambiguity in the tag set assignment. So there are no annotation scheme at whatever level it is being done. There should be no ambiguity. So it should be very clear, straightforward, non-ambiguous, so that it will make the whole process of understanding the text as well as understanding the schemes of annotations very clearly, without any bias or without any misconception. So all kinds of annotation tasks that should be carried out by machine or man should be keeping in mind that the tag set should be maximally non-ambiguous. So overlap of the identical tag sets is not encouraged here. That should not be done. So these are the 12 major principles, and many following these principles which we have defined, we have tried to tag some of the texts in Indian languages, and following the other annotations or tag sets which have been developed by like cause, clause, or text encoding initiative, or Elra's tag sets. These are being used for advanced languages in Europe or Africa, Europe and America and other advanced languages, but these are hardly followed for Indian languages. So the status of tagged annotated corpora in Indian language is not very promising. The very limited, only a few texts are available where these are tagged at the word level, parts of speech level. So we have to go many miles before we can produce tagged corpus. But our expectation that while we are developing corpora in Indian languages, we should also generate the tagged versions of those texts, so that these corpora can be applied for all kinds of linguistic activities. And at the time of tagging those texts or annotating those texts in different levels, we should follow these principles discussed in this module. Thank you.